Hello, hello, it's Kevin here. Time for another video. So it's been about a week now, but just after, it's after Christmas and a new year, but still I had a lot on in the new year, and I still have many new projects and lessons and students and other things which I may talk about in a future video. Anyway, this is going to just be a quick one, continuing the series of Cambridge Academic Task 1. So if you remember, if you've been following the group on Telegram, my YouTube channel, or on Apparat, the Iranian one, or on IELTS 9 Pro, IELTS 9.pro website itself. So we started off with Cambridge 17. We did the 4 essays there. We've done most of the essays for 16, 15, 14, etc. There's 1 or 2 we haven't done. We'll be looking at those in this coming week or so. So we did 4 task 1 to Cambridge 17 and 16, and this is the first for Cambridge 15. Test number 1. So this is the one about tea and coffee drinking in Australia. You may have seen it. So first things first, as always, disclaimer, fair use, blah blah blah. I'm not going to mention that anymore. So this is it. So the chart below shows the results of a survey: people's coffee and tea drinking, buying habits, 5 cities, Australia. Got summarise, select, report to make comparisons. So you've got the percentage of residents, you've got the cities, bought fresh coffee, café, etc. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward there. So I wrote a sample. I think this is a student's. Hang on. Yeah. This one's mine. Get a little bigger so you can see it. So now we've covered a few different kinds of writing tasks in this particular series. We just that camera. Okay, yeah. So we've spoken about a couple of different writing tasks. Okay, we've looked at some process, recycling, the plastic bubble thing. We've looked at some maps and the usual charts, graphs, data, etc. Now this one here, quite a lot of information, so there's going to be lots of figures and data in this one. Now this one may seem a bit confusing at first, but when it's like this, the best approach is to what's the biggest, what's the smallest, is to go down in size. Start with the biggest first. So if we look here, we can see that this dark one here went to a cafe for coffee or tea. We can see that 4 out of 5, that's the number 1 occupation or habit. Yeah, they go to a cafe for coffee and tea. Easily, by some way in those 3, but still, we've got 4 out of 5, that's the main thing. They go to a cafe. So that's the first feature, with 1 exception in Adelaide. So that's what you need to mention. 4 out of 5 is this. However, there's 1 exception. And if we look at instant, that's the second one. Again, in some places by quite some margin. And we can see that fresh coffee purchase is easily the smallest and lowest of the group. So if we're using that typical 4 paragraphs as a structure, introduction or introductory sentence, the graph, table, chart shows, etc., blah blah blah, overview. So what's the main trends, key features? Well, here it's obviously that the cafe is the strongest, followed by instant coffee, and fresh coffee purchase is the smallest. So paragraph number 3, I do went to a cafe and the instant, first biggest and second, and the smallest at the bottom, paragraph number 4, and that's basically it. That's all that you can realistically do with this one. So let's have a quick look at mine first. This one's mine, yeah. So 213 words, that's because there's quite a lot of data here. It doesn't have to be this, but I think most of the student responses, which will take a a look at, of course, after this one. I'm going to be around about 200 words because there's a lot of detail here. So, introduction. The bar charts show surveyed information related to the coffee and tea drinking habits in 5... this is my cursor, okay. In 5 Australian cities over the previous 4 weeks. So, you simply have to paraphrase the rubric in the chart. You know, you could say percentage, you could put what's on the x-axis, what's on the y-axis. You don't really need to, but I could add it here, measured in percentages, but okay. Now, we must have an overview. So overall, from an overall view, it's clear, we can see, it can be seen that tea or coffee preferred a choice of over half the population, because it's 50-60% or whatever, with a singular exception of Adelaide. Instant coffee, not as popular. Fresh coffee was in general at the bottom. So that's just the 3 key trends. That, second, third. And that's it. That's all that we need there. Then, what we need now for paragraph 3 and 4 is the detail. As always, the devil is in the detail. So we want our figures, our data. So it's easier, as I say, start with what's at the top, first, second, third. Just keep it simple. That would be logical. That would have a logical arrangement, logical organization of information. Because the criteria, shall I show you it again? I suppose I can. I have to keep cracking the criteria out because sometimes people don't believe what I tell them. So, right, I'll just quickly... fair use as again, blah, 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 right? So, right, get me pencil. So, cohesion, right, logical sequence of information. So, moving from the biggest to the smallest. And that would be fine, yeah? So that's how I would work on that one, and maybe mention the exceptions, what the exceptions are. Okay, so get rid of that. Okay, so beginning with the most popular category, going to cafes, Melbourne and Hobart, inhabitants because it says people, so we can use that. Residents, inhabitants because it's people in particular cities. Favour this activity particularly, figures data respectively. Sydney residents were almost as avid cafe visitors, 60%, 55%, and finally, so this is essentially a listing just of information, but it's got to be logical though, so I would do biggest, second biggest, and smallest, and that would work fine. So that's the one about visiting the cafe. As for instant coffee, Adelaide, exception. As for other cities, figures data. Finally, the smallest, fresh coffee was a different story. 45%, most common, then blah, 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 right? I'm not going to read it all. Pretty straightforward stuff. I'll just, so you can see the whole thing there. I'll just leave it there. You can pause it and see what you think. So that's, as I say, 213 words. I can maybe knock a couple of words off, but 213 in 20 minutes, that's fair enough. Nobody's going to argue there. So let's have a look now. Yours, well, they might be yours, but as always, the first 5 people who post response in our Telegram group, IELTS 9 Pro, they're the ones who get reviewed here. So I'll put some changes on. And let's have a look. So, 196 words. Okay. The given what? What is given? Illustrates the statistics related to Australians' coffee and tea purchasing and drinking approaches. I don't know about Can you have an approach to drinking coffee? Through various ways. So, right, we can see this introduction doesn't really work. Various ways in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide and Hobart in recent. In the recent, or in the last 4 weeks, or in recent weeks. Okay, in the last week. Now, I'm not going to, right, if there's anything here that I need to change, if it's relatively straightforward, I'll do it, but I'm not rewriting all of your response, all of your responses. I don't have the time, so I'll just quickly explain, and I hope that works out. So, approaches and various ways, that doesn't work really. Generally, so I just put overall to make it absolutely clear. It's an overview. Although in all cities, most of the people like to go to cafes for drinking aforementioned drinks, the lowest rates ascribed, what are ascribed to, the lowest rates are ascribed to those who bought fresh coffee. Instant coffee is run in the restricted range. What does that mean? So, right off the bat here for this first one, we've got some interesting vocabulary. It doesn't quite work. To begin with, Sydney, Melbourne, Hobart, coffee respectively. Okay, that's a good sentence. Despite the previous cities in Brisbane, there was subject, it's café this way. So this is right. This is a bit of a convoluted sentence. Where's the instant coffee? Oh, right, sorry. Moreover, this is a bit of a convoluted, not easy to understand. So, let's just have another look. To begin with, go outdoors for coffee and tea. Okay. Moreover. Well, it's not moreover. It's like, it's not connected to that. It's a separate thing. So it wouldn't be moreover. Despite the previous cities and Brisbane, with a rate of about 55%. 55% of what? This rate is slightly lower. So that doesn't really work. I'm not, and the examiner, like I'm doing here, is not going to be wasting too much time trying to decode this. If it's not clear, then it's not clear. Remarkably. Why is it remarkably? Why is it remarkable that purchasing fresh coffee is the lowest consumption habit? Why would that be remarkable? I'll show the least rates, whereas more or less 38% of Hobart people ranked second, subsequently had depicted about. Okay. So we've got some expressions that don't quite work. It's not as clear as it could be. Some of the explanations could be reworded. I would reword that, but I'm not going to type it out now. So this needs a little bit of work, I think. It should be clear. I mean, again, if you look at mine, mine's pretty clear, I think, so starting with this, then this, other cities, and finally this. I think it's pretty clear. Okie doke, let's have a look then. The bar chart compares the rate of which, so right, we need some kind of relative pronoun here. The bar chart compares the rate at which fresh and instant coffees are bought, or compares the rate of fresh and instant coffees which are bought. And gone to a cafe for drinking tea by residents. So that needs a bit of reworking also, yeah? I mean, what did I say? I said, bar chart shows surveyed information related to coffee and tea drinking habits. That's all you need. You don't need anything further in that introduction. Just say it compares different consumption habits, because it's consumption. It's purchasing and consumption. Where's nice? Preferred to went. Preferred to go to. Drinking tea or coffee last month and buying fresh instant coffee. You can see that the lowest kind of people? The lowest people? You mean the lowest rate of people? Okay, so that overview is better. Okay. In the last month, 600 people in Sydney, Melbourne. Right, so we don't need an article if it's a noun, because it's a proper name. Hobart went to a cafe for, right, word order, Hobart. What did they do? So we've got subjects, Sydney, Melbourne, Hobart, went to a cafe for drinking coffee or tea. Well, almost half the same extent. Same extent or percent? It's not extent. Do you mean percent? Arouse? Around. In Hobart, and approximately 43% in Sydney. Right. If it's a name, you don't say the Rome, the Tehran, the London. You don't use an article if it's a name, a proper noun. Sydney, Melbourne preferred my fresh coffee. My Sydney better to go out 2% more than those who bought for it. Right, so this is just a jumble of information here. This is what that logical organisation thing in the criteria refers to. This is just a jumble. I'm not really sure what to make of this. So it looks like, well, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure about this one here. Cafe drink coffee also have the same extent in Hobart, Sydney, Melbourne referred by fresh coffee. So, right, again, I would just do it the way that I wrote it, because there's a lot of information here, and if you're jumping back and forth like this paragraph does, it's very confusing for the reader, and they're just not going to waste their time on it. Yeah, preferred to, bought, infinitive, instant coffee, even last. So there's some grammar, there's some vocab, and it's just not very as clear as it could be. In Brisbane, Adelaide, bought fresh coffee. So that's but instant coffee. So why is it comparing Brisbane and Adelaide with fresh coffee and then instant coffee? Why don't you just do like, it's like you've got three categories. Why not just do the cafe, instant, and fresh? That would be easier. And just mention the exceptions. 4 out of 5, Adelaide is the exception, etc. That just makes it simpler, yeah? People, Brisbane, people of Brisbane or in Brisbane preferred bought instant coffee last month. So went to a cafe for drinking. For Adelaide City was almost the same extent, with the figures going 259 words. Well, I won't say anything further about that one. Bar chart contains information about the consumption pattern of coffee and tea. Right, okay, that's good. Overall, the chart shows more than that. That is good. Very good. Right, good, clear introduction. Good, clear overview. Cafes more than buying fresh or instant. You could have maybe said this is, first, second, third, but it's kind of implied. And when you've got the outlier, Adelaide, that's very good. Chart in more detail. Drinking this were rather the same, or all almost the same. 2/3 of experience when drink coffee or tea at a cafe. People buying fresh coffee. Follows the same pattern as well, in that the tendency of those residents to go to a cafe. Right, this is going to be convoluted. To go to a cafe was more than buying coffee in the instant form or fresh. In contrast, the Adelaideans had the same preferences to served cafe, to be served at a cafe or instant. Right, so that first part's good, but this second part is starting to get a bit convoluted. The reader's going to get lost in the same way that I'm kind of getting lost. I'm getting bogged down in this one. Okay, given as a bar chart providing data quality consumption, consuming and purchasing habits for Australian cities in the last month, is present great tendency. I wouldn't really say that. A tendency, great tendency. But apart from that, yeah, and the initial impression, I would just say overall, from an overall view, right? Seen from the charts, obviously that's good. Okay. Okay. Now I would have. So there's only 3 cities there. Now you need to be careful. I would include all the data here. So you've got 1, 2, 3. So I would have put the 4 and then put the exception. Instant coffee, more popular. Yeah, all right. Fresh coffee, essentially. But then, okay. So there's a bit of data that you could include in these 2 sections here. Okay, because we don't have all 5 of the cities. But still, that's more comprehensible, understandable than the previous one. But still, there's a little bit of data you could have included there because you didn't include every city. The bar graph provides information about how often people come in. Okay. That's good, yeah. Looking at in the first data set, fresh coffee, more detail, 70 hours consume fresh coffee. So, right. Why would you say that the biggest is going to the cafe and then you start at the bottom of the smallest? Is that entirely logical? I'm not entirely sure if that would be logical or not. It's like you say the major trend, the key trend, the biggest feature is this, and then actually here's the smallest, here's the second one, and here's the biggest at the bottom. Okay. Yeah, fresh coffee. Which buying? Melbourne. Well, Melbourne doesn't. It's the people by Melbourne. Whose people buy? You can maybe say, or whose citizens or residents buy. I hope I don't have to change too much on this. Coffee, which is bought, so it's passive. Fall in the range of. Alright. Turn to a data set on buying instant coffee. Well, it's not a data set really, is it? But okay, evident Brisbane Hobart coffee is highest. Right, again, needs to be passive, yeah, which is bought. If we don't know who is buying it, we've got to make it passive. Right, so going to a cafe. Tea comes in. Cafe 6% equally. Okay. So that's good, but it's kind of arse about it. I don't know why you're saying this is biggest and that's at the bottom. Surely it makes more sense to do, biggest, and the small one at the bottom, like in mine. Okay. So I can see we still have quite a lot of work to do on writing task 1. So I'll quickly put mine up so you can see it once again. So logical order of information, a clear progression. So biggest, second biggest, and smallest. That would be a logical way to proceed in this kind of a task. Okay, hope that helps. I posted the task for Cambridge 15 test number 2. Can't remember what that was now. When I get a chance, later in the week, I'll write a sample, make a video. And then I've got some essays to look at. Also, depends on when I've got time. I've got many students these days. many things to do. Anyway, so I'll put the link to a group below. If you want to join, you may get your writing commented on. And my iTalki teacher profile is also at the bottom if needed. So, hope that helps, and oh dear, excuse me. Hope to see you soon. Hopefully not as long as it's been between the previous one, but as I say, busy after Christmas. It's kind of like, in the new year, everybody joins a gym, yeah? There's a resolution. Well, it's the same here on iTalki. All these new students, my resolution is to improve my English. So, I haven't had a lot of time. Anyway, hope this helps. See you later. Okay, bye for now.